Hey everybody, how you doing today? Good to see everybody. Thanks for stopping in. Hey, let's start right off the bat. I hope you had your reading today. Today we're going to be looking at Psalms 13 through 15 and Luke 11 through 12. But like we do every day, I want to pause for a moment and talk about a verse yesterday. So out of the verse yesterday, I pulled mine out of the story of the feeding of the 5,000. Now there's not only just 5,000 people there. It says in that passage there were 5,000 men. It could be as many as 15,000 people. And you all remember the story if you grew up in church that it was just on 5 loaves of bread and 2 little fishies that Jesus was able to feed these people when they gathered to hear him speak. But there's a verse in there that I really like that really has motivated me, motivated a long time ago. But when the disciples saw the crowd and they were getting hungry, and they came up to Jesus and said, "Hey, can you send the people away so they can go buy food because it's time to eat?" And Jesus says, "You give them something to eat." And they're going like, "Wait a minute, we don't have the money to do that. How are we going to be able to do that?" And then he called for the bread and the fish, and he divided amongst themselves, and he gave it the disciples. They organized it, they gave it to the people, and at the end it says they gathered baskets filled. And it says they, in verse 17 of Luke 9, and they all ate and were satisfied, and the disciples picked up 12 baskets full of broken pieces that were left over. So here's the cool thing about that passage. It really influenced me a long time ago. It's when Jesus says, when they came with sending people away because the task was too big, and he goes, "No, you do it. I want you to do it." That's been part of my philosophy for ministry from the get-go. I'm not a complainer. I don't like to critique. I want to go do something about it. I don't like it when people, I call it bellyache, and they bellyache and they bellyache, and they don't do anything about it. And so I love that. You go and do something about it, even if the task is so huge. But remember, we got Jesus on our side, and so you can accomplish great things. You can feed 5,000, 15,000 people. But notice at the end it says they all ate and they were satisfied. That means there was enough left for us. That means when we do that, when we step out and go do things for the Lord, that we're going to be blessed and we're going to receive back from that, and we're not going to miss out on anything. Right? And so that verse has influenced me a lot. So I really like that verse. That's what I marked down from yesterday. Okay, we're going to look at Psalms 13, 14, and 15. These are really kind of interesting Psalms because they're different topics. The one, Psalms 13, is about David is very desperate. He's crying out to God, and you can tell that he's down and he's depressed. But what I like about the Psalm is how he resolves it at the end. He knows and understands who God is, and he places his trust in him. In Psalms 14, it's a very blunt Psalm. David is confronting people that don't believe in God. And I think he was frustrated with the people around him and the society that he was a part of, that they had left God. And so it's talking about that. Fits right into our culture. And then Psalms 15 is a really good, that whole psalm is probably something that you should memorize. But it says at the end of it, whoever does these things will never be shaken. Man, I want to live like that. I want to live in a way that nothing can shake me. A pandemic, a loss, financial, whatever that might be. That's how you do that. That's found in Psalms 15, but you're going to have to read it to find out what that means. In the beginning of it, it says these are the kinds of people that will be able to dwell in God's tent. So this is the kind of person that we want to be. So make sure you read Psalms 15. Luke 11, through 12, I really see this as you're starting to see the clash between the Pharisees and Jesus, and it's getting ornery. And Jesus is getting ornery as well. First off, we read about Jesus casting out a demon, and some of the religious leaders accused him of doing so with Beelzebub, that's another name for Satan, that he did it under the power of Satan. And Jesus goes, why in the world would Satan cast out his own demon? Why would he do that? A house divided against itself will never stand. And if they just would have thought and paused for a moment, the only person that could have driven that demon out was God. And here God was standing right before them in the person of Jesus, but their eyes were so hardened, or their hearts were so hardened, that they couldn't see that in Jesus. They couldn't see the good of him. Isn't that sometimes we get critiquing someone so over and over and over again that it's impossible for you to see the good in that person, even when they're doing something good? Jesus goes on and talks about it a little bit when he says that in Luke 11:34, he says, your eye is the lamp of your body. When your eyes are healthy, your whole body is also full of light. But when they are unhealthy, your body also is full of darkness. Now, when I first read that, I'm thinking like, what's all the stuff that we take in that influences our mind and so on and so forth? That's what he's talking about. But he's really talking about is keeping our eyes open, recognizing what's happening in front of us. The Pharisees and religious leaders were missing the point. Here was God in their midst. The Messiah was right there. But they had hardened their hearts so hard that they missed the opportunity to actually talk with him in a positive, good way. people were failing to see Jesus. And then Jesus goes into Joey Lawrence mode. Do you remember Joey Lawrence from Blossom? What was his line? What was his sign? He would always go, whoa, 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 all the time. Jesus goes into Joey Lawrence mode. He starts saying, woe to the Pharisees, woe because they did this. And he really critiques them. He says, woe to you. You clean the outside of your hands, but your heart is messy on the inside. Or he says, woe to you because you give 1/10 of your herbs, whoopee ding dong, but you don't do anything about justice. He says, you look for a position of power. Woe to you because you look to a position of power. Woe to you. They think they're influential. They think that they're influential, but they're like unmarked graves. People just walk over them. There's no influence there. They load people up with burdens with all their rules. Woe to you who build tombs for prophets. They honor the prophets, but their predecessors are the ones that killed them. And then he says, woe to you because they had the key of knowledge. They had everything before them. They knew the Torah, the law, the 10 Commandments. They had the key of knowledge and they missed it. Their eyes were closed. They blew it. Luke goes on to write in Luke 12 about greed and how, and I'm sure it's tied together with the Pharisees, but it's also a warning for us to be watchful and not to be watchful of what we're pursuing, that we're pursuing God. He gives a parable of the foolish rich man he built up his wealth, and then when he settled down, he was going to enjoy the rest of his life. He died. He didn't have a chance to sit it. And he says he pursued the wrong thing. Again, his eyes were closed, and he was looking at the wrong thing. And Jesus talks about always being ready and not missing out. So, lots of stuff in this in the Luke passages, lots of stories. That's kind of the highlight of that. I hope you have a great day of reading, and I hope you have a great Saturday today. All right? Blessings, everybody. See you tomorrow at church, and I'll do a devotion as well, okay?